Hey, so today I'm showing you guys how I trim my hair without heat. As you can see here, I'm starting out with it freshly washed, and with natural hair, we get a lot of shrinkage. So before I trim, the first thing I'm gonna do is stretch it out. I split my hair right down the middle and I'm gonna work on one side at a time. So I'm putting up one side for now, and then for each half of my head, I'm dividing it into a front and back half, and for each of those halves, I'm going to divide it in half again. So I'm going to end up with 4 sections on each side. And these don't have to be perfect at all. You just want to try to get a similar amount of hair for each section so it's all evenly stretched out at the end. So now I'm taking some olive oil. I'm using about a quarter sized amount on each section, and this helps with manageability and it gives my hair some slip. Then I'm going through a few times with a paddle brush to thoroughly detangle, taking an elastic band and gathering the hair into a ponytail. And once the base of the ponytail is tight and secure, I'm going to start moving the elastic band downward to band and stretch out the hair. I'm going to continue down the length of the hair, winding around more elastic bands, just adding as many as I need to complete this section. When I'm done with one band, I'm adding another right where it left off, and I'm continuing to wrap. Now when I get near the end, I'm going to start using these thinner bands because the thicker ones, they're good for the top, but they tend to unravel and slip off the ends. But these thinner ones, they stay on and they grip better at the bottom. And for each ponytail, I used about 5 to 6 elastic bands. There's still going to be a tiny piece of hair left out at the end because it's nearly impossible to band it completely down. So for that, I'm taking a little dab of olive oil and twirling it around to smooth it. And that's how I band my hair. It's pretty simple. While doing this, you want to make sure to keep your hair damp. So if you need to spray with some water, do that. You definitely don't want your hair drying out before you band it because it just makes it a lot more difficult to work with, and it also doesn't get as stretched. So make sure your hair stays damp. Again, I used a quarter sized amount of olive oil. I detangled with my paddle brush, put it into a ponytail, and I made sure there's no slack to flatten the roots. Then with the thicker elastic bands, I'm going to wind it tightly down the length of my hair, placing subsequent bands right at the point where the previous one stopped at. Then use the thinner bands toward the bottom. Add a dab of oil to the ends, then twirl to smooth. And once I'm done, I end up looking like this with 8 banded sections. For me, 8 is like the perfect amount to do, but if your hair is thicker, you may want to do more, maybe like 10 or 12 to get the maximum stretch. So now I'm applying some olive oil around my edges, and I'm going to tie them down with a silk scarf so they're not rubbing on my pillow while I sleep. And I'm going to let this completely dry overnight. The next day, I can take out the bands, and this is about a full 24 hours later, by the way. I'm going to take them out and trim my hair one by one. So what I'm doing here is gathering all the ponytails up at the top of my head except for one. Slowly unwind and remove the elastic bands, and applying that oil to the hair, it makes it dry smoother, and it also helps with removing the bands and not getting any snags. And by the way, you can use whatever hair oil you like. I've been using olive oil a lot lately because I always have some on hand and it just works for my hair. So that has been my go-to oil lately. Once the bands are all out, I'm gently separating with my hands, and you can see how nicely stretched the banding got my hair. And then for each section, I'm gonna split it in half, add a dime-sized amount of oil to help the brush glide through, and brush twice to smooth the hair. Then I'm taking a small tooth comb and combing through to get all of the hair as straight and stretched out as possible, while also pulling it straight down with my other hand. And after doing that, you should be able to see exactly the point where the ends start to thin out and look uneven, and you can determine from there how much you want to trim off. So using these 6.5-inch hair shears, I'm gonna trim off my ragged ends. On this go round, I trimmed off about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch for each section. If I wanted super blunt ends, I could have cut off a little more, but this was enough that my ends felt smoother and stronger, so this was good for me. After that half is done, I clipped it over and away, then took down the other half, add that dime-sized amount of oil, brush to detangle, comb through with a small tooth comb to fully stretch. Pull the hair straight down and check to see where the ends start to look skimpy. Then trim. And I always like to check after that to see if it looks straight and even. If not, go back and even it up. Bring both halves together to check that they line up with each other and snip away any ends that may look out of place. So that section is done, and now I'm twisting it and I'm going to put it into a Bantu knot to keep it up and out of the way. Take down the next banded piece, and I like to do one side of my head at a time, working my way up from the back to the front. So I'm removing all of the bands, part the section in half, then clip up the top half, add some oil, use a brush to ensure there's no tangles, comb it to completely stretch the hair out, hold it straight down to check the ends, and snip off the ragged ends. Clip it over, take down the top half, and repeat the steps. Once both halves of the section have been trimmed, bring all of the hair together and make sure it's even. Then twist and Bantu knot to keep the completed hair out of the way as you continue trimming the rest of the sections. And this method for trimming works really well for natural hair. Most of you know that I usually trim on straightened hair because it just makes everything cut and dry. It shows exactly where your hair is uneven. But with me being on a No Heat 2020 challenge, I obviously could not do that. So this is an alternative that's really good in my opinion. By banding my hair first, it pretty much gives me similar results to straightening in that it makes my hair super manageable and it stretches it out to the point where I can clearly see how much of my ends need to be removed. And you have the added benefit of no heat damage. I will say though, if you want to wear straight styles, this may still leave your hair looking not perfectly even since it is stretched but not straightened. But if you're avoiding heat and wearing natural styles, it'll be totally fine and your hair will look and feel a lot healthier. I personally noticed after I did this, I had a lot less shedding whenever I handled my hair, and my hair seems to cooperate better now that I got rid of the rough ends. So I will definitely continue this trim routine until the beginning of next year when I plan to straighten and do a length check, and then after that I'll probably go back to doing this. So here's all the hair that I ended up trimming off, and once all 8 sections are done, I can go ahead and take everything down. I'm gonna give it a little brush, and now I'm just picking it out and eyeballing it to make sure everything looks pretty similar on both sides. And if anything looks out of place here, you can even it up. But yeah guys, that's it. That's my no heat trim routine. I hope this video was helpful, and I'll catch up with you soon on my next one. Bye.